My guest today is award-winning filmmaker, meditation teacher who knows how to bring the calm to the chaos. Whether that be meditating in the middle of Times Square, New York, in a police precinct, or in a prison, Michelle helps people live a more connected and purposeful life. On top of that, I have the distinct honor to call this man a dear, dear friend, one of whom I've been able to see the impact that he makes on people in real life. So I am so excited to share the magic that is Michel Pascal. Michel, thank you for being here today, my friend.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you for your first show.
Incredible.
I wish you the best. I will be very happy to come back after 1,000 show.
Amazing. Yeah. We're going to start number 1 and number 1,000.
Exactly.
No, I wouldn't want to have it with anyone else. Truly, I admire your work. I admire your spirit. And before we even get to dive into the incredible career and work and impact that you've had, for those people listening right now, if they were to take what you say today to heart, how could that change their life?
More than ever, we need to quiet our mind, especially today. How can we work if our brain is running all the time? How can we love? How can we be present to someone if our brain is running all the time? So for me, our health, our project, our relations, our money, I will say, everything depends on our mind, on our emotions. So the question for me is how to calm the mind. How to calm the mind without any effort, without any tips. Because when you say to someone today, oh, take a deep breath, do we realize that the attention span today is 3 seconds?
3 seconds.
This is the official data from Microsoft. 3 seconds online, 7 seconds in person. So the time to say, take a breath, meditate, follow my tips, this time is over. There is another way to help anyone to calm the mind. This is this way that I develop for the prisoners, that I develop for more than 100 CEOs now, that I develop for Google. I started Google in New York 10 years ago as a teacher. And I developed our program at SpaceX. One of my engineers, she works for the next expedition for the moon. So this is fascinating to work with kids in big difficulty, kids who commit suicide all the time. With our program, we have 0 suicide. I am not PhD. I am not psychologist. I am not psychiatric doctor. I am just a meditation teacher who was educated in a monastic life. I come from a monastic life. And I try to adapt what the Tibetan master were teaching to me when they say, Michel, if you consider meditation as a breathing work, you know just 1% of the authentic teaching of meditation. So Tibetan master like Sogyal Rinpoche explain all time that meditation, it's not a technique, it's not a tips, it's when we share an energy. In Tibetan, exactly what we name Lung, L-U-N-G. Lung means the transmission of energy. This is exactly what we teach in neuroscience when we talk about the neuron mirror effect. The neuron mirror effect. You know, Kela, when someone talks to you, you keep the words of the person that you keep, it's 7%. 93% of what you keep from a conversation, this is the energy of the person. This is what explains the psychologist today. So, yes, meditation, it's not a technique. It's a transmission of peace. When you transmit a calming energy and you are a genius artist, it's like in music, all is resonance. Immediately, you change the vibration of the person. You change the magnetic fields because you touch the soul of the person. What is a soul?
What is a soul?
A soul, it's not a concept like that. If we talk from a neuroscientific perspective, we know when we put electrode on the brain for people who pray, for example, there is a fantastic experience about Carmelite. Catholic Carmelite in Montreal have accepted for the first time to be scanned by my friend Dr. Mario Beauregard. Mario put electrodes on the Catholic nun. He put electrodes on Tibetan monks. You see on the scanner that when these people, they pray, they go deep inside of them, they active some profound regions of the brain that usually no one active. This is the soul. If you talk about the soul from Plato in the antique times, Plato says the soul is the finest point of the psyche. The soul, it's impossible to touch, it's impossible to describe, but when you calm the mind, you feel your soul.
That's like the 93% that you talk about.
Yes, you feel there is something beyond your emotions. Life is beyond emotions.
It's amazing now, these things that were ethereal before, that people could feel but we couldn't put on paper, what science is now able to do. Maybe not to pinpoint something, but like you said, when a priest or a nun is in deep prayer, in deep meditation, for something to actually show up on scans and show in neuroscience what is going on is a really beautiful thing.
It's fascinating to see that science, since 30 years, start to discover what we learn in spirituality since the beginning of humanity. Because the concept of the soul, the concept, you have the same in Muslim tradition, in Sufi tradition, you have the same in Native American tradition. Every spirituality talks about that, like it is the center of a human being. But in our world, no, we neglect a soul. Oh, it's for people who pray, my Jesus, or it's okay. We don't pay attention. No, we commit a mistake. As you know, I direct our meditation program since 10 years for the prisoners of Los Angeles at Amity Foundation. When you came to perform, we have 0 suicide. Population incarcerated is the most affected by suicide, 4 times more than any other population. When we talk about New York, when you see the police of New York, they have a huge rate of suicide. Huge. Suicide all the time. The police officer, boom. You have more police officers who died by suicide in New York than they die to be shot by a gangster. In Los Angeles, at Amity Foundation, we are not PhD. We are not psychologists. We are not psychiatric doctor. But we have the best result of America. 0 suicide. Because we develop another approach, the approach of the soul. I direct this program, when we talk about life prisoners, we talk about parolees, prisoners, and lifers. When I teach, or when my team teach for lifers, guys incarcerated 40 years, and we say to these guys, how do you feel? They say, Michel, we feel free. And the size of their cell, as they say, is the size of their arm. But they say, we feel free. Why we have this result? I teach for the kids affected by ADHD. Psychologists say to me, oh, Michel, these kids, they have a big ADHD with their social media. Come on. These kids rejected in New York or in LA. At the second, we show them meditate like a dolphin.
Yeah.
This is the film that I co-direct with CG Pro. CG Pro in LA, they are the digital creator of Harry Potter, Lion King, Shrek, Madagascar, Jurassic World, top team of Los Angeles. We co-direct a meditative film with dolphin. At the second, these kids diagnosis ADHD, like, come on. They put the headset and they meditate with the dolphin. Immediately, they are focused. They focus, and at the end, they say, Michel, it was too short. Can we have 30 minutes, 1 hour? How a child diagnoses ADHD can focus in 1 second and can ask, I would like to spend more time quiet, because we transmit a calming energy, because we touch the soul of this kid.
How did this come up for you in your life? Because you grew up in France. So what was that moment for you that you felt this calling, this pull to move to Nepal and go live in a monastery? Do you remember that moment that you knew that your life was going to change in this way?
I have a blessing in my life. I was born and raised in a violent family. I was abused psychologically, physically, sexually during many years. So when I was a child, I went immediately to the church, because for me, when I was in the church, I was in peace. I realized when I was so young, there is no life without peace. We exist, yes, we do many things, but we are never alive. When you calm the mind, you feel safe.
So even from a young age,
When I was so young, when you are abused, you die or you transcend. You have no other choice.
Yeah.
And I have the blessing to discover by myself that when you calm the mind, you are protected. No one can abuse you anymore. So I was interested. I started to sing on stage when I was 8, 9 years. I started to write a lot of songs. To sing for me was my therapy. And I was very attracted by the Catholic Church to become a priest. But after I discovered Buddhism, not as a religion, but as a science of the emotions. A science extremely precise, like a supra-psychology. And naturally, I went to Nepal, to Kathmandu. I spent a lot of time in Kopan Monastery in Kathmandu.
and what did that feel like? The ability to now be surrounded by other people who also value calm as just a principle of life. What was that feeling like?
The life in a monastery is the same than the life in the world. We work, we walk, we cook, we pray, we talk, but the difference, we are present. When we cook, we cook. When we eat, we eat. When we write, we write. We are present in every situation. And I met my Rinpoche, my Tibetan master, in Paris, and I was his disciple during 15 years. So when you live in a monastic life, you realize that you live in a resort. Because there is no money problem. You know, money is the first causality of stress. This is the official data. This is the official data. When you live in a monastery, there is no money. So you live in a resort, baby.
Everyone's a billionaire in a monastery.
Exactly. Everyone is so rich.
Yeah.
But me, I left the monastery because I wanted to be in the suffering. I wanted to be in the real life. I wanted to be close to the prisoners, close to the homeless, close to people who suffer, but also rich people who suffer. You know, in the same day in LA, I can give a class for a celebrity or a very rich CEO in Beverly Hills. 2 hours after, I am in downtown LA with the prisoners. Who is incarcerated? Sometimes a CEO is more incarcerated than a prisoner. The CEO lives in a mental prison. Oh my gosh, my success, my money. You are a zombie.
The addiction of it.
The addiction. We live in our mind. So for me, to help anyone to calm the mind, This is the best way to love someone.
So, a lot of the times when I talk to people about meditation, people are either really for it or people really get put off from it. And a lot of the times when I hear people who are put off from it, it's because they have a really hard time sitting with themselves, sitting with their thoughts. It could be stresses of the present, it could be pain that they're carrying from the past. And just hearing your story, especially your childhood growing up, how do we go about the process of healing? How do we actually heal from the pains of our past, especially if maybe the people that hurt you or the situation that hurt you, if you can't get an apology from that, if you can't get closure, is it possible to still heal and move forward?
When you calm your mind, you dissolve your emotions. So you dissolve any traumatic picture. So you are cured immediately. This is what we teach to the prisoners. When you talk about your trauma, when you revisit the mental picture of your trauma, you become addicted to the trauma because you upgrade the cortisol in your brain. Cortisol is a neurotransmitter of the stress. You know, Kayla, every emotion is an addiction. It's a neurochemical addiction. If you have anxiety today, your brain needs to feed the anxiety tomorrow. So the brain will find any pretext. The news, whenever, you will be more and more anxious. It's like that.
Yeah.
So at the moment you calm the mind, there is no more abuse, no more past, no more trauma. Now to go back about what you say about meditation. Which meditation do you talk? Because let's be precise. If I say to you, Kayla, what means meditation? When I ask this question, everyone say, "Oh, take a deep breath."
Yeah.
Excuse me to say that. I will repeat what teach Sogyal Rinpoche, the Tibetan master. I will repeat what was saying my Rinpoche, what were saying all the Tibetan teachers. This is not meditation. They say exactly when you consider meditation as a posture or as a breathing work, you know 1% of the authentic teaching. In America, we have kept just that. So this is not meditation. This is, for me, this is blablatation. So it's a blabla because it's blablatation because it's not concrete. I work every day with the prisoners. Many times they say to me, "Oh, Michel, if you say to us, take a deep breath," they say, "You are not respectful. You don't realize how life is difficult." I say, "My friend, no worry, I don't teach blablatation." Because this is not meditation. This is the concept that we have developed in America. But this is not the authentic teaching.
You know, I think that took me a while, especially when I visited you in LA.
Of course.
You know, you asked me, you meditate? I say, yeah, I get up every day. I do breathing exercises. I sit and stretch. And especially here in the United States, where I think that we are taught that more equals better results. You either put more money into something, you train harder, you put more time, more energy, that's going to get you the result you want. And sitting and talking to you, it took me a few months to really hear what you were saying, that the exercises, that is not meditation. That isn't calm. It's almost practicing to be ready for it.
I don't say it's not meditation. I say just 1%. It's just a little part. It's the same if you say, "Oh, I am born in America. The only food is burger and fries." Excuse me, there is couscous, there is sushi, there is millions sort of food. And you say, "Oh, I know what is food." No, you know your little food. It's the same in meditation. Meditation, again, to meditate in Tibetan etymology or in Sanskrit, it means I train my mind in my daily life. It's not I go in a resort trying to imitate the cliché of a monk. No. Because you go to a resort, you spend a lot of money. When you go back to New York City, you are stressed again. Of course. I remember when I started to teach at Google in New York, one of the top managers of Google said, "Michel, there is something we don't understand. At Google, we spend a lot of money to give a lot of amenities For the engineers, they have a yoga studio,
The
nice
nap
place to
pods.
meditate.
Yeah.
But when they go back to their desk, they are so stressed.
Mm.
He say, how can we explain that? I say to him, my friend, your question is your answer. Because if you train your mind in a quiet place, just when the engineer of Google, they go back to their desk, they are stressed immediately. It's a wrong perception of meditation, at the opposite of the etymology. In Tibetan, Sanskrit etymology also, meditate means I train my mind in my daily life. So not I go in a quiet room, I go in a resort. When I am facing my computer, I train my mind. When I am in a conflict, I train my mind. When I am in the traffic, I train my mind. In every situation, I train my mind.
I love your style because I feel like your style and your approach to meditation is so different. You're not,
This is not my
hitting a
style.
ringing bowl. You're not just lighting incense.
Mais
You
non.
bring people to the heart of Times Square, New York, where you work with Uber drivers to help them calm their mind in the middle of rush hour traffic in LA. And if anybody's been in LA rush hour traffic, you know how stressful that can be. So, what is this idea of kind of putting yourself to the extreme to teach yourself how to calm your mind then? How do people calm their mind in extreme situations?
I can give you a precise example. A few years ago, I was training a very good friend of mine. I love her a lot. She's a police officer. And she was very stressed. She was a beautiful woman. So she was very stressed as a police officer because the men were very hard on her. Because she was like a model when she arrives. Beautiful girl. And I say, I will train you when you are in the car, when you drive so fast. When you go to arrest someone and you have your hand on the gun and you drive fast and you are high stress. I was in LA, I call her with my phone. She listened the guidance and I calm her mind when she was driving very fast to arrest. And she said to me, we make a video of that. She said, when I arrive to arrest the person, suddenly I am very calm. And I say to the person, stop now, please. And she said, I saw the result. The gangster, the guys, they stopped immediately. They were surprised to see a woman so calm say, now.
And that could have saved a life that day.
Of course.
Especially these high pressure, high stress jobs.
Of course.
When people are only living in fight or flight and they don't have the techniques to self-assess and bring themselves into a state of
But
calm.
we cannot calm our mind by yourself. Cannot work. Because when we try to imitate a monk living 3,000 years ago in the Himalayas with no stress, we try to imitate someone who was living at the opposite of our life. Wake up, baby.
Yeah, there's no student loans
We live in
3,000
New
years
York.
ago.
We live in New York. We live in LA. We live in a totally crazy world. We don't live like in the Himalayas of the fantasy. When we try to develop the hippie style, it cannot work. No, and it's not meditation. It's not the teaching of the masters. Again, all the masters say, the authentic Tibetan masters say, meditate means I transform my mind. I train my mind in my daily life. It means, for example, you go to buy a coffee at your coffee shop and you say to the person, I would like a cappuccino with almond milk. And you take your time to say that. And you don't lose time. You use the time. That's interesting. You are in the situation. The person facing you at the cashier, probably she has a lot of stress. She has money pressure. Maybe she has kids. She make a job just to make coffee. But when she see the customer calm, you have in neuroscience what we measure, the neuron mirror effect. When someone quiet talks to you, it's a mirror effect. It calms the mind. You know Chris Voss, the famous negotiator for FBI. Chris, I met him one day. He teaches that all the time. He teaches mostly that, the neuron mirror effect. when he was negotiated with gangster, with some terrorist, the fact that he was very calm, the person say, he pay attention to me. You change the mind of the person. You modify the magnetic fields of the person. You don't lose time. You use the time. You see the difference to say, oh, meditate in a lotus position 20 minutes every day. And I use any of the situation. I use the Uber in the traffic. When we train Uber drivers in LA, we don't go in a yoga studio, in a resort. No, we go on the freeway at the rush hour in LA. Rush hour in LA, good luck, baby. So the Uber, after 8 hours in the rush hour, because in LA the rush hour is 24 hours, except the night around 3 a.m. So you drive like that, but we are close, the Uber driver, and we calm the mind in the traffic. So when the brain of the Uber driver feel a calming energy inside the stressful situation, the brain remember. So you reprogram the brain of the person. You reprogram the neurochemical system of the Uber driver. And the day after, when the Uber driver enters in his car has changed. His car becomes his refuge. His car becomes his monastery.
Yeah.
The place can be in the traffic. I am quiet.
It sounds like to me, right? Once you can help somebody have that perspective shift and show them that this is possible, even in the most conflict, the most stress, that you can find the centering within yourself, then it allows people to know that it's possible. So then they get to make a choice.
Yes.
When something isn't conscious, it feels like it's uncontrollable. You don't have any say in the matter. But once you can show people this, which is the work that you do, you show people that you have a choice to enter this state, to stay in this state, no matter where you are and what your outside environment is.
And it's very interesting also to realize as a teacher, we have the responsibility to be every day what we say. How can we be a meditation teacher? How can we teach yoga? How can we teach peace if we are stressed? You know, it's the same when people go to the mass, they pray Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. 1 hour after, this girl is gay.
Yeah.
Where is my Jesus? Where is my meditation? If I am not what I pray, if I am not what I say. I don't say it's easy sometimes. Of course, it can be difficult. But in America, in New York, I remember my first student, she was a yoga teacher, a big, serious yoga teacher of New York. And she said, Michel, I am so stressed. I say, my baby, how can you be a yoga teacher if you share your stress? Because all is contagious. You share your emotion, you share your anxiety to your student. You teach yoga, but beyond yoga, you share your stress. She said, Michel, you don't realize. New York, it's a big pressure for make money. We have a big competition between yoga. I say, my baby, where is your yoga? You don't teach yoga. You don't teach meditation. You share your stress, full energy. Yeah, it's the same for sound bass. Many sound bass players are so stressed. You can play a ball. The difference, it's not you play the ball. The difference, it's your hands. If you have stress, you share your stress through your fingers in the ball. Kela, you are an amazing singer, musician, beatboxer. You know that if you are stressed on stage, you share your stress. But when you are happy, I have performed many times with you, you are a very happy person. At the moment you start to sing, to beatbox, wow! Everyone is happy. Everyone wants to clap the hand. Everyone wants to dance with you because you share your energy. Carlos Santana, I remember, said to me, you know, Michel, when I arrive in a stadium, I play one note, boom, one light, and I tune all the stadium. It's the same with my friend from Earth, Wind and Fire. Yeah. I adore Earth, Wind and Fire. When Philip Bailey, Myron McKinley, Verdine White, they start to play the word, We cry, we are happy. They tune the stadium. Everything, it's a resonance, like Carlos Santana say.
It's what you talked about in the beginning of what is the 7% of what somebody is saying to the
Yes.
93% of what
Yes.
their energy is.
And this data, the 7% and the 9, it's not a data like that. This is the official data that you can check on ChatGPT. It's written in every studies in psychology.
And that's why, you know, you've talked to me about Amity House and Amity Foundation, and I want to dive deeper into that right now because while what you were telling me was incredible, and for me, I was like, please, if I can be a resource in any way, if I can be a part of this, I would love to. There's so much that you can't explain until you're actually into the room with the people. And when you're in the room with these amazing guys and you feel the energy that you are transmitting to these people and how the energy in the room just immediately centers and you raise the vibration towards the end where everybody is dancing and singing. So can you talk to me a little bit more about Amity Foundation? How long has it been around? And really, how is this program different than all the other prison reform programs across the country?
Amity Foundation is the biggest foundation in California for the reinsertion of the prisoners since 40 years, maybe more. And at Amity Foundation, we have the best result of mental health in America. We have 0 suicide. 0. 0 suicide with the prisoners.
For 10 years, is that correct?
Yes. 0 suicide. You know, when we give classes, we make a survey. Since 10 years, 100% positive rate. Every prisoner say, oh my gosh, we love this class. In California, like in New York, around 70-80% of prisoners return to jail. You know that. Huh?
80%
crazy.
of prisoners will return after they leave jail.
Yeah. After they release, 2-3 months after they commit bad act, they go back to jail. At Amity Foundation, 90% of prisoners never return to jail.
90% never return
No,
after the program.
they find a job. They rebuild a family.
Yeah.
They change their life. Why do we have this result? Why? Because our approach is totally different than the usual approaches. Totally different. Why? Because we tune the soul of the prisoners. We don't ask to the prisoners, oh, what have you committed? Since how many years you were in jail and what's happening to you? And talk. No. We are not interested by that. We are interested to calm the mind. When you calm the mind to a prisoner, you reduce the stress. So you reduce the depression. So you reduce the loneliness. So there is no violence. I am very touched by the organization in New York, Life Camp, with my friend Erika Ford, who directs Life Camp, with all our staff. They do a fantastic job to reduce the gun violence in New York City. Fantastic job. Like in Los Angeles, we have in California, we have a lot of organization and coalition. When you see that in California, one of my friends, Alfredo Gonzalez, with his organization, he reduced 40% gun violence. So there is hope in this world. There is hope. And I see at Life Camp, they do a fantastic job. So in my life with the prisoners, I have lived many incredible stories. And I have decided to make a film, not a documentary, a fiction, to tell an exceptional story that I have lived. It was a guy, he was incarcerated 25 years. And he has the permit to receive his daughter for the first time. He has not seen his daughter since 25 years. The daughter came to him to celebrate Christmas. And she said, Daddy, for the first time, I am not scared by you. You have changed a lot. You are very calm. And he said, oh, my love, this is Christmas. I have no money, but I offer to you the most beautiful present that a dad can offer to his daughter. I offer to you my peace. My peace. I make a film about this story. This true fiction, it's a fiction adapted from this true story. And I have the blessing in the character of the daughter to have an exceptional actress, a spiritual actress. She become, many people say in France, she's a new movie star in France that everyone love, Héloïse Vallée. Héloïse is an exceptional actress, and she will come to America for this film. So, and this film will be in many film festivals in America. We will screen the trailer of the film at Carnegie Hall.
Amazing.
Yes, January 11 for the show with you and with Life Camp.
Yeah.
I want to show to the world what we live. As your interview, it's about Amity. People need to see in a film, in a fiction, in documentaries, the result. Yes, there is hope. Our world is not only black and dark and difficult. There is amazing people. But the thing is, in media, we never talk about good things.
Yeah.
We love to talk only about spectacular, demoniac things. But many beautiful things exist.
Michelle, I was changed from the program. I mean, even I remember after one of the performances that we gave, a young man coming up to you and telling you that he was proud of himself. He said, I'm so proud of myself because I am brave. I am brave to be here and to change. And I think that the greater idea of forgiveness, right? People have a really hard time giving second chances or forgiving. But especially I look at a lot of the men that were there that were in prison for 40, 50 years because of a mistake that they made when they were 17. You know how many dumb things I did when I was 16, 17? That can completely change your life. And yet, even 50 years later, people will still have the same judgments or have the same stories attached to these people. So when it comes to this idea of forgiveness, of rehabilitation and second chances, why is that so important to offer forgiveness to people, to offer this chance of freedom and the ability to become somebody new?
We are not our opinion. We are not our past. We are a soul. Everyone, we have the possibility to change our life until the last day of our life. We can change our life. I say that from a neuroscientific perspective. The brain is what we name in neuroscience a neuroplasticity. Our brain changes all the time. So you can have a life so difficult, but in 1 second, you shift your brain, you change, especially when you calm the mind. When I see the example of my friend Robbie Nova, Robbie is an amazing singer, producer, award artist in New York. Robbie is a music director of Life Camp. He has a recording studio where kids gang members come to record in peace. In peace. His action pacify the kids. His action saves the life of these kids in New York. Instead of to kill people, they go to sing. In LA, in California, I saw this example. We work with 2 kids from different gangs. They came together to sing with me, to rap, and they say, we realize that we are brothers. They will be at Carnegie Hall with us on stage. They come from 2 different gangs. They hate. They have transformed the hate in love in 1 second, just by the power of music, just by the power to say, come on, okay, we are so stupid. We don't want to go back to jail. We want to be kind. Me, as you know, I don't do political because I love everyone. I don't reject a person. And you can be, I mean, I remember I was contacted one day with a woman. She said, Michel, I am in the team of Donald Trump. Do you accept to teach me meditation? I say, of course, my baby. Of course, with all my love. I am here to help everyone. No judgment, no rejection. And of course, to stop any violence. We cannot kill someone for an opinion. There is no sense. This is not possible. We must be kind. Life is so short. We must be kind in any person. You know, we spend our life to never be alive. We spend our life to never be alive. We spend our life to be occupied all the time. We are possessed. Stress, it's demoniac. It's a force who possesses your mind. When you overthink, it's demoniac. We spend our life to never be alive. But it's too late when we realize.
It seems like
You realize when you are facing the death most of time. Someone die close to you, you say, oh my gosh. Oof, my gosh, we are nothing. Yes, we are nothing. But most of time we forget the death. We must stop any violence. We must, I love at the Mass when the word of Jesus say, just one word, Jesus, and my soul will be healed. Just one word, Jesus, my soul will be healed. So, not the Christ that we try to possess with our concept, with our belief, but the Christ that we are. When we say the Christ, we can say the light. And it's the same in any religion. It's the same. It's funny, in Buddhism, you know the joke. Buddhist people, they say, oh my gosh, Christian people, they believe in God. Come on. We don't believe in God, we are Buddhist. Just in Buddhism, the goal is Rigpa. You know, Rigpa in Tibetan means the clear light, the awakening. You have the clear light, the awakening. Christian people, they say, oh my gosh, these Buddhist people, they don't believe in God. God in Greek or in Latin comes from dies, deus. It gives the word de in English. It means the clear light. We say the same with different words. But our ignorance built the walls. And everyone has his own way. It's very important to respect. At Amity Foundation, we respect any belief system or no belief system. We are beyond religion. When we will be facing the death, we will realize that the reality is beyond all what we can project. You know, we are facing cameras. Life is a film. Nothing is real. It's a mental projection. When we put electrode on the brain, let me give you an example. If you see this glass, this cup of tea, for example, there is no cup of tea. If you have a microscope, subatomic microscope, you realize that the cup is moving. It's not solid, it's fluid. And when your brain sees the cup of tea, at the first second, you don't know it's a cup of tea. The brain needs 2 milliseconds or 1 millisecond to reactive the concept, it's a cup of tea. Your brain recognizes. But during 1 millisecond, we don't know what it is. It's the same for our emotions. We don't know what it is. But we interpret, we project, and we are sure it's a cup of tea. It's a cup of tea because since we were a child, someone said to us, oh, it's a tea, it's a cup of tea. But we can say it's spaghetti. It's shoes, it's a bikini. I have my bikini. You like my bikini, Kayla?
Yeah, it looks great.
It's nice
looks great
bikini.
on you. Yeah.
All is a mental projection.
So in today's world, right, in the present right now, it feels like people are very divided. People are thinking in binary terms, right? Good guy, bad guy, my side, your side, cup of tea, bikini, whatever you want it to be. What is your advice for people to recognize that that's happening to them and to change that pattern to walk in a more compassionate light and in a more compassionate way?
Think about the death. The only thing that we can be sure, this is the death. This is not if we will make money, if we will go to holidays, what we will buy for Christmas, who will be the next mayor of New York City. No one knows. The only thing that we can be sure, absolutely sure today, we will die. It's interesting to see that the only thing we can be sure in our life, we don't want to think about it. We are not interested. It's like we will not die. We will die. When you think about the death all the time, you stop to judge. I give all the time the example, imagine, Kayla, you drive on a car on the freeway, and suddenly a guy drives close to you and say, hey, girl, fuck you. What? What? Yeah, what? Come on, baby! He opened the car, and boom, and you punch, and everyone say, oh my gosh, you are crazy, they hate. And this guy suddenly say, Kayla, and he has a heart attack. You say, my gosh, this guy. So you put your hands and you try to put your mouth to save his life. And he comes back. 1 second before you hate this guy, 1 second after you love this guy. There is no sense. When we are facing the death, facing the only thing who exists, we realize that we must be kind. We realize that we must stop to judge someone. Because an opinion can change in 1 second. An opinion, it's like our skin, our bones, our atoms. Since we start this interview, every cell has changed in our body. Everything has changed in the world. The opinion changed all the time. We were sure about something, and a situation happened, and we think something different. It's all time like that. So when you realize how life is impermanent, and how death is the only thing that we can be sure, we say, oh, instead of to judge, instead of to use my energy like that, instead of to be stressed, could be better that I am kind, that I don't judge, that I say it's okay, that I realize that life is beyond emotions. Life is beyond our mental projection. Life is beyond our judgment, beyond our belief system, beyond our opinion. You know, there is no ocean without waves. There is no life without judgment. There is no life without problems. Everyone we have challenge. Everyone we have problems. Like the ocean have waves. Most of time we stay in the waves, in the challenge, but we can see beyond the waves. We can say, oh my gosh, there is something beyond my judgment. When we start to judge someone, we start to be blind. Who we are to judge someone. Who we are to say this guy is good, this guy is not good, this girl is good. Come on. Who we are to judge. Are we perfect? No. We are so imperfect. And our brain changes all the time. And our atoms, the particles subatomic in the universe, change all the time. When suddenly you realize that, you stop to judge. And instead of to judge, you realize that we must be kind. We must be more quiet. At the end of the day, we are less tired. And make the experience, the more you judge, the more you are tired.
It's a lot of energy that goes
Of course,
into judgment.
for nothing.
And you know, it's so true that this thing that happens to everybody, death, the one thing that we know is going to happen and is certain for everybody, especially here in the United States, is something that is very taboo. We don't think about it. We don't talk about it. You know, I spent time in Mexico during Day of the Dead, where in Mexico, they talk about death here, there, everywhere. It's something that is celebrated. You know, when you go to the funeral here in the United States, everyone's wearing black. It's mournful. You go to Mexico, they're having a party in the graveyard, celebrating, dancing, singing. And I think that that's a really beautiful practice to have, right? To sit for a minute and really think, if today was the last day of my life, are these choices that I've been proud of? Am I living the life that I wish to be living? Is the relationships with the people close to me the relationship that I want to have? And if it's not, how do we change that and take a step forward with that? I think that one thing I really admire about you is your ability, and I know you I love that you you don't want to be a teacher, you don't want to teach people. I know you're very humble in your approach.
No, I am never enough humble. I confirm to you. But for sure, I don't want to be a guru. I have no community. I have nothing. I am not interested. I have no title. I have just a T-shirt. That's it. And if you want, I can pull out my T-shirt and say, yoo-hoo, I can do that.
Yeah, all right. We'll save that for later.
Yeah, let's do. But no, seriously, no. I will say to you, what say my Rinpoche all the time? He say, Michel, don't follow any guru, but become the guru of your life. To live is to choose. To live is to choose. And I hope that through your show, people can be inspired to have another perspective. To say, oh my gosh, we can solve the suicide? Yes. We can solve ADHD? Yes. We can solve gun violence? Yes. We can be happy every day? Yes. This question seems impossible. but this is what we live every day. You know, prisoners of LA, I say all time, they are the poorest people of America, but they are the pioneer of a new world. When I see in New York City what my friend Robinova is doing with the kids, what life camps they do every day, they are the pioneer of the new world that we want to live. This world exists today. But most of time, we prefer in the news to see the bad news. But there is also good news. When there is in the cosmos, when you have dark, you have white. There is both in the same time. I pray, I hope that your show can bring a lot of hope, a lot of light. Not to say, oh, baby, love is the answer and I believe in a better world and to change the climate.
Yeah.
Come on, shut up. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
For me, spirituality doesn't mean to talk for nothing, but to be concrete. What is your result? What are your data? How many people don't die with your program? That's it. This is my only question.
And I love that you are walking the walk. You don't just talk the talk. And in fact, you don't do a lot of interviews like this because
No, it's true.
it's because you are very humble in this way and you don't want to seem like somebody who is being a thought leader in this space.
No.
But what I love about you is how you use creativity to really activate people, to share that message, to transmute your energy. When we first met was for a performance. Our mutual friend Paul put us together, and I walked into this room before the Times Square Day of Peace. And first of all, the band that you had with you was a Frankenstein band of the greatest musicians I've ever seen in my entire life.
Me too.
But then when we started to perform together, I'm telling you, I was having trouble keeping up with you. Your energy that you can maintain and preserve, I was keeping up to Michelle the whole time, trying to go as fast as you wanted to push me. So for you, what is it about music and about your performances that is so important in the way that you transmit this energy and share this calmness, this presence with people?
First, I am not interested at all by myself. I don't like to talk about me. I don't like storytelling. I don't like when people say, oh, let me tell you my story. No. But I am interested by the result. I am interested when we give concert for the prisoners every week, when we are together on stage, when this amazing musician like Myron McKinley start to play. Stacy Lamont Sidnor is for me the best drummer of the planet. Ian Martin on bass. I have never heard a bass player like Ian.
Yeah.
These musicians are just unbelievable. Paul Pesco on guitar is beyond any words. When Paul start to play, the world is liberated. It's magical. It's like Carlos Santana, Earth, Wind and Fire. When the people, they start to play, they elevate the vibration. So I am interested by that. Of course, the more you calm the mind, the more you have energy on stage. It's super important to realize that. The more you quiet your mind, the more you are active. The more you are productive. The more you are creative. And I love on stage to don't really rehearse. We make with you just a short rehearsal. Because when you play with musicians like you or Myron McKinley, these people, they are super virtuose. They don't need to rehearse. We rehearse little. We don't know exactly the set list. It's funny. I prepare every time set list. We don't follow.
Goes out the window immediately.
Come on, the set list. We don't know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I will say we cannot lie to people. When suddenly it comes from your soul, you touch the soul of the person. And the person can be rich, poor, young, old. I remember I was a teacher of the survivor of Auschwitz. I was the meditation teacher of the survivor of Auschwitz in Los Angeles. And it was fascinating to see how these people who survive from the Nazi, from the gas chamber, you can imagine the PTSD that they have. I was surprised to see when we touch their soul, it was possible to stop their PTSD and to calm the mind. It's the same with the military veterans. Yeah. I love my country. I love military veterans. They are really my family. I am all time impressed to see these people who have huge PTSD with Iraq, with war. At the second we calm the mind, we touch the soul, they are liberated. I am all time, to reply to your question, I will say I am all time amazed when you see a kid gang member, when you see a police officer, when you see a prisoner, when you see an engineer for SpaceX. I love my friend Zan. She's a genius engineer. She prepared the expedition for the moon. The level of stress is crazy. But all these people, at the second you touch the soul, so you lead a meditation or just you talk to them very quietly, oof, they are like that. But this little oof, we know in neuroscience, when you put electrode on the brain, you decrease the cortisol, you upgrade the serotonin, the hormone of well-being, and you become addicted. You say, I want more oof. I want more peace. I realize that, yes, the more I am quiet, the more I can be active, the more I have energy on stage, the more I am productive. Many people who come to see me on stage say, Michel, you are crazy. You teach meditation and you jump 2 hours on stage per show. How you do
true.
that? I say, yes, I jump 2 hours because I calm my mind.
So it's the preserving of the energy, knowing when to use
Kayla,
it.
I met Michael Jackson many years ago, so in 1998, Michael Jackson came in Paris and he was interested to meet one artist per country. His management chose me to meet him in Paris.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it was a special for me. I spent 45 minutes to talk spirituality as we talk with Michael. When he arrives, I remember he said, "Hi, I am Michael." I try to be funny. I say to him, "Hi, I am Michael also." He doesn't laugh. But I was very impressed how Michael Jackson was so quiet. You know, Michel, he talked like that, very calm. And he invited me to see his show in the Stadium of Paris. And you know Michael Jackson on stage, it was unbelievable.
Electric.
The energy, bam!
Yeah.
This guy was the fire, the thunder of God on stage. But before and after, so quiet. I saw that with my friend, I love Michael Beckwith. You know, the founder of Agape in Los Angeles. Michael is so quiet. And on stage, when he starts to teach, he has an amazing energy. So, yes, the more you Carlos Santana in the backstage, I saw him, he's super quiet. I was impressed. I have played many times with Raúl Reco, the percussion player of Carlos, and I was impressed to see Carlos Santana in the backstage, super quiet. The stadium scream, people can't wait the show, Carlos, super quiet. And the management say, Carlos, go. But he starts to play.
The flip is
the
instant.
vibration is unbelievable. Yeah. And he said to me, because the more I keep calm, the more I preserve the energy, to liberate the energy at the second I will play.
It's the idea of being conscious about your choices, right?
Of course.
If you're just letting your energy go at all points, which is something that I'm working on, right? I'm definitely someone who buzzes a little high frequency, but how do you really be conscious with your choice of when to put your energy out, how much to use, and to save it and to keep rebuilding it is really important. So as a kind of like wrap up of some questions right now, for people who want to become more meditative in their life, more conscious, more calm in their life, it feels like, especially in New York City, you know, you wake up and then boom, the emails come in, people are asking things of you. Do you have some tips for something right in the morning that people can do to really center to themselves, to make sure that they can stay in that state of calm before they walk out the door or meet with the kids or go and talk to the boss?
No one today can listen or follow tips. I say, oh yes, Kayla, I have a tip for your friend. Do this, do that. Shut up. Cannot work. The time to give tips is over for me. When people say, you must be like this, you must be like that, you must be grateful, the tips arrive and goes immediately. The time of the tips is over. Cannot work. But what we cannot talk to someone's stress, but we can tune someone's stress. When we lead the meditation, people can listen on the YouTube channel or Instagram. I post video every day with my team. Suddenly, when we listen few seconds of a calming energy, we change our mind because we touch the soul of the person. The future of meditation is to go back to the authentic teaching. When the master were saying, it's not a technique, it's a transmission of energy. And after, this energy can come from music, can come from someone. It can come in New York just when you listen the rain on the window. It can come just when you see the clouds in the sky. The clouds are our emotion, and the sky is our mind. Our emotions are not solid, they are fluid. So every emotion, like a cloud, is moving all the time. So it can be through Mother Nature. You can read the book of the nature. You read the book of the sunrise. See the sunrise at Brooklyn Bridge. Wow, what a teacher. Suddenly, in the silence of the sunrise, you cry. You understand the difference to give a tip, do this, do that, and say, it's okay. No tip for me. I don't want to learn, I want to feel. I don't want to learn a new information. My brain is already full. I want to feel. And when you feel something profound, you don't active your brain, you active your soul. Again, in neuroscience, if we adapt, you active some very profound region of your brain that we name the soul. There is many articles when people say, scientists have discovered God in the brain. It's true. They have discovered a region of the brain that you active when you pray. And after, what I love, everyone has his own experience to receive this calming energy. I can just share with you what I do, but I don't say do that. Me, I don't like to give tips. Yeah. And I think the best advice is to never listen any advice, but to listen your inner voice, not to project, but to listen your soul. When we have questions in our life, it means that we have the answers. God has created questions to help us to find the answers. Me, I can just say to you, when I go to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, and I have sung in St. Patrick Cathedral last year for the show of Saint Therese. Yeah. I was singing Ave Maria, I was singing many songs. Me, it's just my own experience. When I go at St. Patrick's Cathedral, when I go at the Mass, I cry. I feel something. I feel a quality of peace which is not human, but divine. But I can say I feel the same when I walk on the Brooklyn Bridge at the sunrise. I love to go to Rockaway Beach early in the morning, take the ferry from Wall Street. I discover Liberty Statue all at the sunrise, and during 1 hour of ferry, what a spiritual experience to calm my mind. It can be 1 second because it's not a question of quantity but quality. A question of quality. And also, you calm your mind when you help someone to calm the mind. One of the practices that we can do, it's funny if when you say, how are you, to someone. How million times we say per day, how are you? And we don't care. If the person, Kella, me, I have a big problem. So sorry. And you go, you know what I mean? But just when we say, how are you, to someone, it calms your mind. When you arrive to your coffee shop and you say, I would like a cappuccino with almond milk. But you use this simple phrase, this simple word that you repeat every day as your teacher. I will say to finish to you that every person that we meet is our teacher. Many times people ask me, Michel, what is your favorite spiritual leader? in America.
Mm.
I say the next person that I will meet is my spiritual leader. Each person that we meet, it's an opportunity. It's not one more person, it's one more chance.
Mm.
Today I will meet maybe 15, 20, 30, 50 people, maybe many people we meet every day. I pay attention because I know this person can die.
Mm.
I know I can die. Maybe it's the last person that I meet in this life.
Wow.
When you realize that, and it's the only true, it calms your mind. Every person that we meet is our teacher. Every situation that we live is our monastery. And I will say every difficult person with us, every nasty people with us, especially people unkind with us, are our best teachers.
Mm.
When someone is unkind, sorry, what a fantastic teacher. Instead of to react, this person train your mind to be quiet, to realize that this person can be nasty, but this person can die in 1 second.
Mm.
The worst situation that we can have can become our teacher. I will share with you something funny to finish. One of the practice that I love, it's to call IRS, to call taxis. I love to do my taxis in America.
I think
know
you're the only person in America that's going to say
I
that.
love to do that because I love. It's a way to give back money.
Mm.
It's a way to give money for hospital, for school, for everyone. I love that, and I love when I need to call IRS when I have questions. They say hello. I say hello. And I love to be kind with them, to be calm. I say this person, she works for taxes, but I imagine the life that she has. Oh my gosh, on the phone all the day. Administrative tasks are, for my side, an amazing teaching. I love taxes.
April 15th is your favorite holiday.
Yeah,
it's your
it's true.
Christmas. You know, what I really love and what was so profound about what you just said too, that I've never, well, maybe this was a thought in my head. I've never really thought about this specific question of what if this person in front of me is the last person I've ever see? And if that's the case, wouldn't you want your last moment to be one of kindness, joy,
be kind.
calm? That completely changes that for me. And thank you, because so much of our friendship has challenged beliefs that I've had. You know, the belief of things not having to be hard. As you say all the time, life is simple, Kayla.
Yes.
Life is simple, even in stress. And one really beautiful thing I think that you have helped me realize is that idea of presence. When we sat in the monastery in LA, we sat and we ate there. And when we ate in silence. And with every bite, you told me, really say thank you to this food, appreciate the nutrients, use this food as medicine. I'm telling you, I'm 34 years old. I have never, ever ate at a table with that type of experience before. You know, sometimes I eat, I'm talking to the person in front of me. You know me, I ask a million questions, or I'm on my phone, I'm thinking about what I have to do next after lunch. That practice that you gave me, that new perspective, it offered me a choice now that when I eat, you showed me that you can sit in stillness, you could sit in
Yes.
presence. So I thank you so much for your friendship. Truly, being with you and being your friend, I feel so lucky to have somebody like this in my life. And for those people listening, as you say, it's not about tips. It's about that transmutation,
Yes.
that
Stop.
transfer of
We
energy.
talk too much for nothing.
Yeah.
We talk. Shut up. Stop your tips. Shut up your show. Hey, this is my show and I have an advice and God and make money, baby. Shut up with your tips. Shut up.
Yeah. Do you
Calm
think
the mind.
Yeah.
Calm the mind. You will feel, you will discover that another life is possible. Another life is possible. Now and then. Now, immediately.
Could you, as a gift for people listening right now, give us that moment? Maybe lead us through something, a song or a prayer or meditation, just for when people are stressed and they need that transfer of energy. They need that moment to collect themselves and feel the calm that you so easily give to me as such a beautiful gift. I would love to share that with other people.
I can sing for you and for everyone Om Mani Padme Hum, a Tibetan mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum It's beyond any religion. O mani pe meum, for me, brings me to the Christ. O mani pe meum means, may all I can say today be full of love. May all I can do today be full of love. All I can think today be full of love. Mani pe meum. O 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 mani pe meum. Thank you, Kela.
Thank you, Michel.
Thank
You
you.
give me the feeling of so much. Thank you for the work that you do. I know that you don't necessarily love to get the thanks from people. You don't do this because you want followers or money. You are so real in the service that you provide for people. And for me, it is an inspiration.
I don't know what is to be real, because nothing is real.
Yeah.
Nothing is real. All is a projection. Just I will say every day, everyone, we have the responsibility to be kind with every person. Everyone, we have the responsibility to calm our kids, to calm our colleagues, our manager, our friends. We have the responsibility to be kind, to be in God. I will finish by what was saying Saint Therese. This is the feast of Saint Therese, October 1st. Therese say all time, stop to talk about God. Stop. Be in God. We can adapt and say today, stop to talk about meditation. Be quiet. That's it.
One of the hardest things to do.
We need to be what we pray, what we say.
Well, thank you for being such a
Thank you,
wonderful
Kela.
role model.
Thank you to Doug
I know.
for your beautiful
Thank
studio
you,
in
Doug, at
Brooklyn.
Sweet Tea.
Beautiful place. Amazing technique, amazing people, amazing job.
Yeah. And,
Yes.
you know, I know you don't do this for people to follow you, but I hope that they do follow your work, that they see the
Yes.
incredible film that you're making for gun violence, for reform, that people join us at Carnegie Hall in
Yes.
January
On
to see the
Instagram,
youth.
on Instagram,
Yeah.
Michel meditates. And we will be with you, Kela, with the youth, with Razel, with Robinova, with Life Camp, with Myron McKinley, Earth, Wind and Fire, with the youth from California. They take the plane to come January 11, 26 at Carnegie Hall. I will start to sing calming melodies, and after you will arrive, we will put an amazing fire, baby, in this room.
I'm just going to
Oh
be
my
trying to keep up
gosh.
to you as always.
Oh
Michel,
my gosh.
thank you so much.
Thank you,
Truly,
Kela.
I value your friendship, and
Thank
you know
you.
I'm always here for you with whatever
Love you,
you
my
need.
sister. I am happy now to live here.
Thank you, Michel.
Thank you.
Oh, incredible, my friend.
Thank you, Kela.